who the best welterweight at the moment is. Who's the best welterweight? Everyone's asking the question. I know some people have an obvious answer, but it's not as straightforward as people probably might make it out to be. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, different perspectives on who the best welterweight in the world is. You've got the likes of Errol Spence Jr., you've got Manny Pacquiao, you've got Keith Thurman, who's a welterweight, you've got Danny Garcia, you've got Kell Brook, you've got Sean Potter, you've got Terence Crawford, and all of that. But this is my list. So number 5 in terms of who the best welterweight is Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman, an absolutely fantastic fighter. I mean, he holds multiple victories against multiple victories, if I'm not mistaken, against the likes of Sean Potter and all of that. And you've got him fighting, he fought Manny Pacquiao, and you know, it was a very, very close split decision victory in favor of Manny Pacquiao, and he actually gave Manny Pacquiao a really good fight. So yes, you can't complain when it comes to Keith Thurman. And the next person on my list has to be Danny Swift Garcia, a legend. I mean, he's obviously probably out of his prime at the moment, but he fought really well. He fought really well against Errol Spence Jr., although he lost by decision. Very confident, you know, has a devastating mean left hook. And yes, Danny Garcia definitely is number 4. And number 3 goes to, drumroll, Manny Pacquiao. I know you was expecting maybe Manny Pacquiao could be number 1, but honestly speaking, it's going to be almost impossible to have Manny Pacquiao as the number 1 best welterweight in the world right now when you have the likes of Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. You know what I mean? Although Pacquiao is a legend, he's fought really well. He's an 8 division boxing champion, holds more belts in each divisions than any other boxer in boxing history, but he actually does not, you know, rank number 1 or number 2 in my how I view things, to be honest, in terms of pound for pound the best welterweight in the world at the moment. But definitely number 3, Manny Pacquiao ranks number 3 in terms of who the best welterweights in the world are at the moment in boxing, especially pound for pound in the welterweight division. I mean, we can talk about Manny Pacquiao's career, 8 division boxing champion in history, fought the likes of Floyd Mayweather, Antonio Margarita, and anyways, he fought all of it. He fought greats like that. He fought Oscar De La Hoya, Juan Manuel Marquez, Marco Antonio Barrera. You know, the list just literally goes on. What he's done, Ricky Hatton, he's fought Ricky Hatton as well, as I mentioned, and what he's done for the sport of boxing is just nothing sort of sensational, and definitely needs to be commended for it. Either now or later, guaranteed that Manny Pacquiao is actually gonna be in the boxing's Hall of Fame without a shadow of a doubt. To be honest, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think? Manny Pacquiao, the legend, 100%, definitely gonna be in the boxing's Hall of Fame. Because of his accomplishment and everything he's done for the sport of boxing, and he's actually a senator in the Philippines, and obviously there's going to be a time maybe he might be the president of the Philippines, who knows. He's a legend, he's inspiring to every single person, he's aspiring to be a boxer. I mean, his professional boxing career is incredible, as I've mentioned, and his personal life outside boxing is also incredible. He's inspired a lot of people, so he ranks number 3 in terms of who pound for pound the best welterweight at the moment is. And number two, this bit, oh my god, this is so hard, to be honest, because obviously we all know that it's between 2 people, right? So who would I go for? Who's gonna be number 2? Okay, number 2, Errol Spence Jr. I know, Errol Spence Jr. number 2 in terms of pound for pound the best welterweight at the moment. Honestly, you know what he's done. He's fought the likes of Sean Potter, Danny Garcia. He's been on fire, to be honest. Errol Spence Jr. really good job, devastating. You know, southpaw. He's a southpaw. I mean, his fight against Sean Potter is a real testament of what a good fighter he is. I mean, he was pressured. Sean Potter was very aggressive in the fight, but he stood toe to toe with Sean Potter and eventually won by split decision, if I'm not mistaken. And a very good fighter, a really good fighter, very confident, very charismatic, very calm, cool and collected, especially when it comes to his approach in boxing. And anyone who's looking to be a boxer, I guess he's just one of those people that you should really watch and learn from, to be honest. Yeah, yeah, as I mentioned, one of those people to watch and learn from. So he's really good, really good. He has his jab was very effective. In one of his fights, very very effective. He uses his jab very well, obviously from a southpaw position, and has a devastating right hook. Remember that same right hook that he knocked down Sean Potter. Amazing. I mean, he quite recently fought Danny Garcia. He stopped Kell Brook in Bramall Lane in England, Sheffield, after Kell Brook couldn't fight because his eyes were shut. That's how good he is. Traveling to England and beating one of our own in Kell Brook. That's how good Errol Spence Jr. is. But definitely, there's definitely improvements that need to be done in terms of you know, to get to that number one position, because who's number one at the moment? Number one at the moment. Number one, we all know number one. Terence Bud Crawford at number one, ladies and gentlemen. Terence Crawford is just too good, man. I mean, what can you say, man? The guy is skillful beyond explanation. Like the way he fights is like an art. Everything has a purpose behind it. His jab, he just doesn't throw punches for the sake of it. He's like the Floyd Mayweather of the welterweight division, but more aggressive a little bit, if that made sense. So he's a really good boxer, high IQ in terms of boxing intelligence, and this is why he ranks number one above everyone else, to be honest. And I'm pretty sure he holds most of the belts in the welterweight division anyway. So as we mentioned, if Manny Pacquiao could actually beat Errol Spence Jr., a possible fight between Pacquiao and Terence Crawford is probably what we want to see as boxing fans. But anyways, if Errol Spence Jr. on the other hand beats Manny Pacquiao, then the fight that we would want to see as boxing fans is obviously Terence Bud Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. I mean, quite recently, Terence Crawford just absolutely dismantled Kell Brook. It was an easy victory. We all know it was going to be easy. I mean, no one really complained, to be honest. He dismantled him completely. So, ladies and gentlemen, he's a legend. I know you might not agree with my pick. But listen, it's a matter of perspective. But I'm pretty sure you should be agreeing with maybe number one should be Terence Crawford and number two Errol Spence Jr. Or you can have it vice versa. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, put your top 5 best welterweights in boxing at the moment. Top 5 best welterweights. So number 1, obviously we got Terence Crawford, right? Number 2, we got Errol Spence Jr. Number 3, we got Manny Pacquiao. Keith Thurman at number 5. So absolutely sensational. The welterweight division in boxing today is just on fire. It really is on fire. It's been lit up on fire. So who's your best? Who's your favorite? Because I've already given you my list anyways, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely fantastic, honestly. The day we're going to see these people, just essentially when, different promotions like Top Rank, and all these different promotions that these fighters come from can finally come together, and make these come together and actually make these fights happen or transpire. That's going to be a day, mate, honestly, because we've seen with Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, that fight actually already went down the sink, mate, down the drain, because, some promotional issues, and Deontay Wilder obviously won the right for a rematch against Tyson Fury for the 3rd time. So who knows, as I've mentioned, you never know what could happen in boxing. The Bronze Bomber could get a knockout against the Gypsy King Tyson Fury, which then definitely hinders the fight between Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, which we all want to see now. There's a possibility it's going to increase the likelihood of AJ actually fighting the Bronze Bomber. Now, I don't think that's a bad fight, to be honest, but I mean, if you're from England or if you're from America as well, I'm pretty sure we all want to see the fight between Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury for the IBF, WBA, WBO, IBO, Ring Magazine, heavyweight championship of the world. You know what I mean? That's all we want to see, bro. That's all we want to see. So I don't really know, to be honest. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, it's just boxing, to be honest. You never play with boxing, and Fury needs to be very careful, as I've mentioned. And Errol Spence Jr. in the welterweight division should never look down on Manny Pacquiao, because Pacquiao is very devastated. He's a really, really good fighter, although people might seem like age might catch up with him. But all dogs still bite, and they bite really hard. So, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you obviously watching this video. Subscribe, comment down below with your notification bells turned on. You know what I mean? Just the support and that, and make sure to click the videos down there, and as I've mentioned, where it says all, subscribe. And until next time, have yourselves a good day.